Hi and welcome to another episode of Startup Stories, where I interview the best and brightest startup founders and experts so you can be ahead of the curve with your own startup venture. This episode brings us together with Michael Haase from Plant Jammer, a startup that helps you empty your fridge with the best plant-based recipes and also helps you stop food waste. Imagine the following situations. You're coming home after work, you open the fridge and you see some carrots, half an apple, soy sauce, and mushrooms. Or you found a nice and cheap cauliflower in the supermarket, but don't know what to do with it. Or your food is too salty and you don't know how to fix it. These are just some of the situations that have made me give up and order takeout. But it doesn't have to be that way. Plant Jammer offers a variety of great features like food pairing, the GastroWheel, and the balancer that target the problems I just mentioned before. The team has a free mobile app with over 30,000 active users and 3 million recipes. And for those of you with higher goals, the app lets you upgrade to Prime, which will get you nutritional target setting and tracking, as well as additional meal planning features. Having Michael on the show was a delight, and I learned a lot from our conversation, which is why I'm super excited to share this episode with you today. Enjoy! And here we are. Michael, thank you so much for taking the time and joining me on this podcast.
No problem, Daniel.
Can we first start out maybe by you telling me a bit more about yourself and also about the startup story we're going to talk about? I'm super excited.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I'm Michael Haase. I'm from Copenhagen, Denmark. And I started Plant Jammer about 2 years ago. I have a past that's quite corporate. So I used to work for McKinsey as a management consultant and also spent a little bit of time in an investment bank, Merrill Lynch in London. So quite a different background for your average entrepreneur. But I decided to get out of corporate life and into something that I'm truly passionate about.
Right, which is Plant Jammer.
Indeed.
So you're solving the question, and that's one of the reasons why I'm so excited. You're solving the question, what's for dinner tonight? So I have that question. Obviously, most people have that question, but I fail to answer it. I'm really bad. So tell me a bit more what Plant Jammer does.
Yeah, so most people fail to answer this extremely simple question they ask themselves every day, right? What's for dinner? We come home from, let's say, work. We had a long day, hadn't made enough decisions, and suddenly we're standing there, in front of the fridge and have to figure out what to make. And the problem when you stand there is that basically we found that existing technologies are horrific at helping you answer that question. So if you go to Google and you write, let's say, broccoli salad, you're gonna get 1.5 million recipes thrown in your face, and it's a complete jungle, right? And you're gonna find a lot of recipes that don't quite fit what you have, don't quite fit your nutritional needs, don't quite fit what you normally like, and that's because the whole concept of having a recipe database to search in is just not a very efficient way of finding something that suits you. So yeah, we decided to do something dramatically different. Basically, a journey that starts with ingredients rather than recipes, and we built a whole artificial intelligence with machine learning based on existing recipes to understand sort of what is good taste and which ingredients go well together and how. And then you basically build your own recipes based on what you have and what you feel like. That's much more modular than trying to ask some authority what recipes they have available.
Right. So for someone who doesn't know AI and machine learning and all these topics, it's simply said you put in what you have in your fridge in the app, and then it tells you, okay, you could do that or you could do that.
Yeah, so it's a journey where you type in what you have in your fridge. It finds patterns in terms of what of those ingredients go well together. Then it also tells you, by the way, if you want to make this really delicious, you should add one of these 15 ingredients. And then you pick one of those and says, okay, you can make it even better if you add these 10 ingredients, one of these 10 ingredients. And that way you're sort of gamifying your way to that final decision of what to make. And you end up with a recipe. but a recipe based on exactly what you have and what you've chosen, not some random stuff that Google put on top.
Yeah, yeah, and it really is super simple. I tried it out, and I think I would be the perfect person to use that.
Great to hear.
Because I have things in my fridge, but I'm it's like my creativity shuts down when I open my fridge. I'm like, what do I do with tomatoes and, and this other thing?
That's kind of the beauty of this for me personally has been how it's opened up a world of creativity, because I came from the perspective, let me just get this dinner over with so I can live my life, right?
That's me. That's me. That's me right there.
But once you sort of get into this and realize, because we created a whole language of food as well, which is something we call the GastroWheel. We work with chefs to understand why do things go well together. So it's not just asking an engine, you're actually learning about cooking on the path. And slowly you start getting these competences in the kitchen, and you can start sort of, once you know the basics of good taste, you can start freestyling and creating your own stuff much more. So it's really cool to have this space in your life that used to be, let's get it over with, and suddenly it becomes actually an area of self-expression and creativity.
Yeah, totally. And it's so important for your health as well. So
Completely. I like to say that we spend so many hours during the day looking into screens and thinking conceptually. And cooking and eating is one of those areas of your day where you have a chance to actually, get out of your brain and into your body. It's like exercise or meditation. It's so good for you. So it's basically an opportunity wasted if you don't do something about that, I believe.
yeah, yeah. So you have a full app on the app stores. What was your initial idea?
Yeah. So
Because was it exactly that, or did you start at somewhere different? And how did you test out, that people have an interest in that problem and your solution for it?
So it's been a highly non-linear journey, as I think most startup journeys are, right?
Yeah.
So it started off with a vision, basically saying, okay, I working with sustainability. I realized that if we can once or twice a week refrain from eating meat and eat more veggies, it could make a big difference. And I thought, okay, how can we get there? And the first idea I had was to say, okay, what if we, use some of the good biology and chemistry out there to build an amazing plant-based meat substitute. And I looked a lot into this, worked with universities to sort of realize, well, how could that be done. And my conclusion became that actually we can do so much more interesting stuff and so much more sort of habit creating stuff if we work with real food. So after like 2 months of walking around farms and with universities talking about this stuff, I realized, okay, let's make it different. And then I talked to my girlfriend at the time, who told me that she knew how to cook well by just knowing what goes well together, which ingredients, right? So I thought, okay, we can probably make something like this as a digital product where you don't need to spend 100,000 hours learning how to figure out which things goes well together. Basically, bootstrap those learnings from existing recipes. And what I did first was to buy a bunch of books on food pairing, take an Excel sheet, put a bunch of ingredients into that Excel sheet and see which things tended to be together, and just sort of build a little database on my own. So now I knew that if I had broccoli, then probably you would want to have balsamic vinegar, olive oil, pomegranate with that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Then I had that big Excel sheet, and I found a programmer via the platform Upwork, Keshav in Bangladesh, and for 500 US dollars, he built a website that could dynamically help with like this very simple database on an Excel sheet, dynamically build sort of a food pair for you. So you said broccoli, and then we'll tell you balsamic vinegar, and then
so cool.
Then we had something out, right? And I put that out there and tried it out with people, and that was sort of suddenly you have a license to learn once you have something out there in the real world, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then you get feedback. Basically, what happens is once you put something out there, you start getting slaps in the face, right? Because you start
right.
What does not work for people. I remember having this one dinner with some friends where I showed them this product that I had spent quite a lot of hours and sweat and thoughts to get out of on the road. And they would just bash it. I'd made sure to give them a lot of wine, so they were really honest.
That's a good trick.
Yeah, and they were talking. First of all, their first feedback was, we need to have an actual recipe. You cannot just tell me that these things go well together. I need to know what to do. That was the first input there. And then there were some other things of saying, okay, you tell me that this goes well together, but I don't know why. So how am I to trust you, right? And like from these learnings, like it was a tough night. I almost shed a tear once everyone left the door. but it also made me realize, okay, I need to, I knew what to do now, right? And that's the beauty of getting something out really early. It's that you get a license to learn. And that's what I would really recommend to always do. Get something out there early. I think it's the founder of LinkedIn, one of the founders of LinkedIn, Reid Hoffman.
Yeah,
it's a sentence that says if you're not embarrassed by your first product, you launch too late.
Yeah, totally.
I think it's totally true.
That's a very famous one.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, it kind of, I mean, the feedback gives you the roadmap to what to do next.
Exactly.
Basically, and that's so useful.
Yeah.
So you, how did you get your first customers? Because so you had this web app, or I don't know how you called it, and then what was next? What were the next steps to get customers or users, basically?
So first of all, the first purpose of getting a product out is actually not really to get customers, right? The first purpose is to get knowledge, right? To get
learning,
people out there and to be able to learn. So the most important thing was actually not so much getting a lot of people into the webpage at this point. That was a data point, of course, but most important was now I had something that I could go out and have cups of coffee with people, show, and just see their impressions. So that first round was just friends and family and fools
exactly
who I could find, who wanted to spend half an hour and a cup of coffee, just seeing my product, telling me exactly what they thought page by page when they saw it the first time. That was sort of the most important thing about that one. So that was basically just friends, right? So put out organically on Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram, and just ask people if they wanted to help test, and then learn from that, right? Then we also started getting some of those people that we talked to. They started getting really excited about this, right? Because one thing is the product they could see in front of them, which was honestly pretty crap. But the other thing was when they started talking to me, they realized the thoughts behind and what we were actually building. And they started believing that we could build it because, they looked me in the eye and they sort of believed in what I was saying. So they got really, dedicated, which was cool, right? So suddenly you have this sort of group of people who are following your journey, who are giving you feedback along the way, and who are, brutally honest when they see new stuff coming out. And a lot of those very first coffee dates sort of became are still users today, right? And they still giving feedback whenever we come with something new out there. We even made a little Facebook group out of it now called the Plant Jammer Superheroes, which are some of our super users who we tend to put our next and new features out in front of. So it's also evolved into becoming this sort of call it a focus group for new developments.
Yeah. Cool. And so at what point did you get your first team member on board? Because you were alone until then, right?
Yeah, no, actually the story was a bit interesting. So this is also, I guess, classic startup story. So I started up, with two friends, Frederick and Frederick. They're still good friends. And they, in the first journey of figuring out how we're going to do plant-based meat and then realizing to make an app and so on, they realized themselves that probably they did not, that this journey was just too hard. The startup journey is pretty hard. And, they also wanted to, soon become fathers and have a nice house, and it was just easier to have a corporate life. So they basically jumped off very early, and by just realizing that startup life is, it's pretty rough sea sometimes. They did that. We're still really good friends, and we meet once in a while and talk through the product. So they're helping us a lot. Then I got another person on board who was a friend of a friend. And she was really, really good with social media and sort of spreading things out. Also had a good eye for design, and she joined me for the first year or so as well. but also realized along the way that probably, it was also a bit too rusty with this. Because the thing is, what you do in startups, if you build something, you get a lot of no's, and then you get a few yeses, right? And it has to be a mindset that you just listen to the yeses more than the no's if you're gonna make it through, right?
Yeah.
Someone said that you should actually appreciate the no, because perhaps your sort of competitive advantage is that you saw this first, and if people haven't seen it yet, they will say no because it's new and it's not what they thought, and for that reason, you will actually get a space to develop the product and make it unique before they even get it, right?
Yeah.
It's basically your runway. Anyway, so we had these co-founders along the way then also had to buy out as they decided not to be part of it. We had good contracts that made it fair for all parts.
Mm-hmm.
We're good friends. But I realized also as I was evolving the product that I needed real tech people in-house, because if you're building a product where you're gonna put stuff out, get feedback, adjust, put new stuff out, and do that on a high frequency, you cannot have K-Shop in Bangladesh, no matter how too far away, right? You just have someone you can look into the eye, write on the whiteboard, have heated discussions, all this stuff.
Yeah.
Face to face is necessary. So I needed some people around me, right? And the first thing I needed was someone to understand the database behind and build a really good understanding of how can we find patterns and ingredients that go well together, based on this whole idea of using what's called a neural network from artificial intelligence to understand patterns of what goes well together.
Yeah.
So I basically put up a job ad for a student job, and I was extremely lucky to get Jura, who's now a co-founder of Plantjammer, in as one of the first guys to interview with. And I knew after like 3 minutes of conversation, wow, this guy is so much smarter than me.
Yeah. That's a good sign.
Indeed. We also just hit it off, right? Had a really good conversation, and that's obviously key, because again, you're gonna have rough seas, and having someone you're just having a fun time building stuff with is important. So I got him on. I got Anders on, who's also a co-founder now, who's a front-end developer, and who has a really keen eye for user experiences. And that's been they've been on throughout the journey. And by now we are 9 people, of which half are full-time. 5 are full-time and 4 are students. Really smart people, all of them, which is cool. It's really fun to build a culture around building a product as we're doing.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I mean, I've been working in a semi-startup, semi-corporate setting before. So in a corporate startup where we were also a team of 7. But so I got a little bit of feeling about the culture thing, but there was always the corporate culture above it. But definitely an important topic. And yeah, I have one question that's related to not the beginning, but your current status. I read online that you have thousands of active users.
Yeah.
Around 30,000, I read.
Yeah, we're currently at just about 30,000. That's right.
So first of all, congratulations, because that's an insane number.
Thank you.
I mean, there's millions of apps being built every week, and retention. So getting people to open the app every day or every week is really hard.
Indeed.
What would you say is? You probably did 1,000 things to get there, but what's one thing you would say was maybe more important than others?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we will work on retention for the rest of our lives, right? Because that is the part. Like, how do you get to create enough of a habit that people see so much value in your product that they keep on coming back? We tried a billion things. You're absolutely right. I think the first one thing we tried for a long time, and we recently went away from, is to keep people basically keep a digital footprint of their fridge on Plantjammer, so they know what they have, and then they can always cook with it. And that way, sort of, you keep on investing in the product and sort of get that feedback loop that you get better products the more updated your pantry is. It sounds really cool on paper, right? And it sounds just right, but the fact of the matter is that no one wants to keep the fact that they have tomatoes, up to date every day. in
No.
an app, right? So, and that's something we kept on trying to get that to work, but it did not work, and it did not create retention. What we found that really works, however, is the whole aspect of health. So when you talk about food, one thing that will make you want to cook more plant-based, one thing that will make you want to cook more real food, and not just do takeaway, is the health aspects of you being in control of your life, in control of your diet, and actually a little bit hacking your health every day by eating the right things.
Yeah.
And the moment we moved into that, it really changed matters a lot. Like right now, we're actually just launching today a new version of it where you are you're setting a health target. It can be let's say brain health, or it can be sustained energy throughout the day, or it can be weight loss, or it can be muscle gain. And then we have found out which ingredients really help you on that journey. We did a lot of research on this, and then we gamify it. So we make little apples next to the ingredients that are good for you and your target, and then you're picking apples. And this is giving you this sort of sustained feedback loop where every choice is actually doing something good for you. And we realized the earlier version of this that just retention rates really spiked, and I really have a great faith in this being key, because it is really good for you to be cooking yourself and having real food, and we just want to make that really clear.
Yeah, I can completely understand why that could work. I mean, this health hacking thing.
Yeah.
I just bought a ring that tracks my sleep, and I'm really looking every morning. How did I sleep? What can I do better to sleep?
Cool.
To sleep better, to be more ready during the day, and so on. So, and food is such a big part of life. So
we also realized, because what we do now when we develop things is that we first we build a user story about exactly what it's going to feel like to have this feature. This is really important, because then we get user-centric rather than just building a feature because it sounds cool. And then the next thing we do is we write what's called a gratitude letter. So we write up sort of, okay, if we build this feature, what would a gratitude letter to the CEO sound like? Long form.
That's cool.
We're really gratified about this. And then we get really detailed about this gratitude letter. So we really know, okay, this is how it should feel to have this feature in the app. Right? And once we've done that, we start building Facebook and Instagram ads based on that sort of feeling. And we start saying, hey, we're building this. Please participate. If you please want to be a beta tester, let us know. And then we have phone calls with people. We meet with people, and we hear how their existing lives are and how they today are acting around, for instance, health. And then after that first conversation, we come and actually show them a better version of the product and get feedback. And that's super powerful, because then we also learn these ridiculous things. For instance, we learned about health that 1/5, like 20% of the people we talk to, they have some issues with their stomach, like some stomach ache once in a while, and they don't know why. And when they ask the doctor, they will say, keep a food diary, find out yourself. Right?
Yeah.
So we're left in complete blindness when it comes to health sometimes. And it's quite amazing how something that has such huge impact on our well-being is kind of left under the radar, and we are just not really acting on it very much. I think it's a huge untapped potential to a little bit more about our health and how the food impacts us, and then act on it in an easy way.
Totally. I mean, you see also, junk food and how that's destroying lives. So a huge potential, definitely. I just had one more question that just got away. Anyways, it might come back.
Yeah, no worries.
I am full of other questions. So what was one thing that you really did badly while working on your startup? Oh, I know now the thing I wanted to say, actually, which impresses me. And it's, you're launching new features as if you're building a new startup every time. For me, that's how it looks like, because I would have my hypothesis, like, okay, this could be a cool solution to that problem, but let's do some ads and do a survey and then talk to the people and see if they really have that problem. And you do that for every feature?
Yes, that's something we do now. We have not always done that. But yes, that's exactly what we learned that was necessary, because every time you release a new feature, you're adding complexity to your operation, to your organization, and to your user experience. If you're not being extremely economical about that, you're gonna be going down the wrong pathway, spending time on building something that actually subtracts value from the user.
Yeah.
So I mean, you should always be extremely economical about what you build. And you're right, actually. Think about every feature, every change, almost like a little new startup you have to test and be data driven about.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. I really like this. So yeah, the next questions are the advice round. So it's about you sharing advice to listeners and future entrepreneurs. So my first question was, what was one thing that you did really badly while working on your startup and that you wouldn't recommend someone else to do?
Cool. I was just about to be scared about talking about advice. I don't feel like a professor, but I can definitely talk about our mistakes. So I think it's very related to what we just talked about now. I think we used to be, and I think it's a very common thing to be, way too, I like to call it, be output focused rather than impact focused. And what that means is, when you're output focused, you're very focused on, hey, we need to put the feature out, we need to make something happen, feel like we're acting, feel like we're progressing all the time, because it feels good, right? It feels good to build new stuff, and it feels really good to feel like, okay, the product is changing, we're doing stuff.
Yeah, it feels like progress.
It does, but it
only feels like it.
Exactly. So what we learned is we were way too much of that, and that meant we put out a lot of features, put a lot of junk out there that sort of was. We just said, it's a test, so it's fine. But actually, no, it's not fine to put stuff out just as a test. You need to think about, what are you testing, what is your hypothesis, and why are we doing this. And being output focused, you get a huge bias for action, and that way you're not really getting to test hypotheses for real. And we did that for a long while, because it's natural. If you're nervous about whether you'll make it, if you're nervous about whether you will get it right, then the most natural thing is just to get really busy building something. And so what I'd much rather be, and we're learning now to become more and more, is impact focused rather than output focused. So that means, okay, if we put this out, how is the impact going to be for a user? That's why it's so important to create a user story, but also a gratitude letter to the CEO from the user to the CEO about, like, why is this going to be changing people's lives. And the other part of impact is obviously metrics. So what do we actually believe, if we do this, we can do with our retention rates? So if people go to the screen and click this button, do we believe we can get retention rates from 25% coming back the next day to 35%? That's impact focused. And then we have to roll all our resources into getting that number to become 35%, whatever it takes, right? That's impact again. So I think much more focused and much more obsession about the user and how it's going to feel and how it's going to impact their behavior, instead of being obsessive about the features and the products. Because we are a team of a lot of engineers, so it's easy to be focused on output and features rather than users and impact. So yeah, that's basically my biggest mistake. And I think we did it for at least 6 months in a row, just focused on getting new features out there instead of really taking that step back. Sometimes more is faster. Huh?
Yeah, that's a good advice. So not action focus, but impact focus.
Exactly.
Definitely. You definitely did some things right. You wouldn't have gotten funding and that many returning users. If you could share one thing that with future entrepreneurs that you did right and they should probably also focus on, what would that be?
Yeah, I think one thing one thing I'm most proud of in Plant Jammer, it's quite internally focused, but it's basically the culture we have built. So we're this team of 9 people, and I can say with great conviction that every individual in that team feels they identify with Plant Jammer, right? They act, all of us act like it's our company, and all of us act, with passion about the kind of change we want to make. So the popular startup way of saying it is that we have missionaries, not we don't have mercenaries, we have missionaries.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't have people who are just getting tasked and getting it over with. We have people who really believe in the cause, believe in the product, believe in what we're doing, and are super excited about it. And that sort of culture I'm super proud of, and makes me super happy just to walk around in the office and feel that energy in each and every individual in the team, and makes me give like so much more belief in our future than anything else, any other data point. It's basically just looking into the eyes of the plant jammers and
Yeah.
feeling that energy and passion, because I've never seen such energy and passion in a corporate. I think in that way we're truly unique, and it's so gratifying to feel.
Yeah. So I'm in a situation where we'll be growing our team as well. We're working on a startup.
Yeah, well done.
Thank you. We're not at your point yet, but we might get there. So what would you recommend to me concretely? Let's say I have to get one additional co-founder,
Yeah.
and then maybe 2 or 3 more team members, let's say in the next 1.5 years. What, concretely, what should I look out for to build such a culture?
Yeah, so I think again it actually comes a little bit back to the first advice of being impact more than output focused. So what you want to have is a team constellation of people who are happy with getting a really audacious target goal, but not be told the path to that goal. So that kind of self-driven behavior where you don't have people who are excited about a very concrete task, they're excited about a very vague task with a high ambitious and specific goal in mind. So in Google they work with something called OKRs, objectives and key results, which is a really good tool. We use it as well. And basically in that each individual, they have an objective, which is basically an overall goal for the next, let's say 3 months. Very ambitious. So it can be stuff like saying we need to have at least 200 people going into Prime as a subscription basis of Plantjammer every day kind of thing. And that has to happen within 3 months. That's an objective. And then key results below that is how do you achieve it, right? But I focus mainly on the objectives, and then set those objectives to people, and then have the kind of people who are excited about having a very, very ambitious goal, but not have a very specific way to get there. So they have to figure out that themselves. And finding people who are excited at that level, I think, is super key.
Yeah.
So that's probably at least one parameter is like people who are excited about goals rather than tasks. That's super key. And then I think the other part is at least as important is that these are people that you just love hanging out with, right? Whether for better or worse, right? Because the startup journey is really tough. Like it's hard work.
Tell me about it.
You're gonna get a lot of no's, and you're gonna get a lot of doubts, right? And you're gonna also have likely quite some sleepless nights, right? That's just part of the journey, and you gotta have people you just love being in the struggle with, right? Who you want to have on your side down in the trenches.
Yeah, exactly.
As fun as it is, and as exhilarating it is, it is also it's a really tough journey, right? And you need to have people on your side in that journey who actually enjoy that battle, right? I like to say, like, one of the advice I tend to give people is do a startup if you love doing a startup, right? Not because of the money, not because of the fame, but because it's fun to solve problems that are really hard to solve in a short time manner,
right? Yeah. I mean, all these things, I can totally agree with you. It's not easy, and you need to have people with you that you enjoy working with.
Completely.
Even or especially when times are hard.
Yeah.
My last question is about, if there's any piece of content that you read or consumed that you would recommend to entrepreneurs. And I ask it to every guest, but I you said you came from a corporate background. So for me, that's curious because, you didn't study, innovation or design thinking or any of these topics, I guess.
Nope.
So how did you manage to kind of learn the ropes of entrepreneurship apart from just doing it, which is the best school ever?
Yeah, no, I think you are right that the best school is doing it, but you can sort of also bootstrap some of those learnings. Yes, you can do it by reading books, and I've read a lot. but I think most importantly by talking to people who are going down that journey themselves, or have done so, right? So
Yeah.
so I think my biggest source sort of inspiration and direction in this journey are friends of mine who have tried or are still trying or have successfully started companies.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually the best one, is to like figure out in your network there must be some people who tried this out, and those are the people who will tell you the real story.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of great stories you can read about, but they will always be a little bit too rosy. The real gritty work of how you actually get things done, you will only hear over a beer in a bar, probably beer number 4, from someone who's gone down that journey, right? There's a really good book about this aspect that's called The Hard Thing About Hard Things. I don't know if you heard about it.
I heard about the title. I never read it.
It's super good. I can't even remember who wrote it right now, but it is the whole. I think it's Horowitz from Andreessen Horowitz. Wrote it. But anyway, he basically tells a story of, sure, there's all these general lessons for startups, which is lean startup methodology and Hook and all these books that everyone reads. But they all make this rosy picture of, this is how you do a startup. Just follow this sort of equation, and if you follow the equation, the end result will be success. But the whole lesson and the hard thing about hard things is, no, it's not enough. Like, you're gonna do these things, and that's gonna help you, and that's gonna give you a greatest probability of success. But at the end of the day, you gotta be on your toes every day and see the small hints and battle through the tough times. And if you make the right decisions consistently under pressure, you will make good stuff happen. But it is also the hard things, and there's gonna be hard situations like firing people and splitting ways between people that you admire but just couldn't work together. Getting no's from investors you totally believed in, getting no's from customers that you thought you nailed. These kind of things are going to be there, and I think also reading that side of the coin is super important, because that's totally part of the equation. It's not all rosy. It's fun and it's great, and I would recommend people, if they have a sort of an idea, that to go for it. But they should just not have a rosy picture of it all being, if you just follow this equation, it's going to succeed. So yeah, that's probably the book I'd recommend the most, The Hard Thing About Hard Things.
Yeah, definitely. And you just gave me an idea of how I can, evolve that podcast. I could start interviewing people while drinking a few beers, and at beer number 4, we'll finally get to the really gritty things.
That's a brilliant idea.
It's not very healthy though for me.
I know.
All right, well, Michael, thanks so much for taking the time and sharing your story. It was really exciting. I learned a bunch of things. I love how you start every new feature like a startup. I love the gratitude letter to the CEO.
Yeah.
That's really cool. And I love, how much focus you put on the culture, and I'll definitely take that with me when growing our team. Thank you so much.
Super cool. Thank you so much for having me.
That was it. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Startup Stories. Make sure to check out the show notes with additional links at nerdentrepreneurs.com. And if you liked our podcast, leave a review on iTunes. See you on Monday.